Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's November 18th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and I really meant to start out with our daily chart. Let's pause. Let me bring up the daily chart just a second. Okay, you can see our daily chart. You can see we opened right here at the trend line and traded down. It looked like we were finally going to get a close outside that trend line, and look, this thing reverses. It closes on its very high. So that's a reversal type day. You can see the resistance is still up here, but it looks like we're maybe going to push higher. So we may go higher from here again. We're still shooting at this point. We're still shooting for this target. Whether or not we'll make it, we'll have to see. But that's my near-term target at the moment on the daily chart, and that's up above 4,800. So this is one crazy market, but it just keeps climbing higher. But I thought it was interesting that how this day played out. It looked like we were going to go lower, and we actually closed on the very high and back inside that trend line. So this two-tiered trend is still in play. So don't give up on it yet. All right, let's go back to the daily chart and get through our trade. Okay, here's our intraday chart for Thursday. Not a lot of trades after about 10 o'clock. This market was just crazy. I'm sure you could argue for something in there, but I just don't really see anything I like. There's one long right here that I meant to mark. I went back and forth. I think you could argue for that to be blue. But there's not a lot of trades in here. This is a very strong move up, but it just, on my chart, there's no setups really. So we'll talk about them when we get to it. There was some really good trading early on. It should have been done early today, to be honest. If you traded this morning, there were some really nice trades here that get you some nice runners. And so maybe you got done early. But it was really hard watching this go higher, but I just don't see any really good setups. They're just not there. So if you didn't see anything, what really happens is people will watch this and they can't get any setups, and it just keeps going higher and higher, and they say, okay, next time that thing corrects, I'm going to get in. So it corrects here, and you don't really get a setup here on my chart. But somebody might have tried to sneak in early on this bar or something, thinking it's going to reverse at the EMA or maybe even this bar, and they get trapped and it burns them. So don't chase these markets. Don't feel like if you didn't get a setup and this thing went without you and it just kept going higher, then you did the right thing. So that's the difference between a good trader and a bad trader. Is a bad trader just couldn't stand it. They'll watch this thing go and go, and they'll say, next time I get a real correction, I'm getting in. And you get a correction here and they get in and they get burned. And so don't be that guy. If the market's going and there's no setups, then you're doing the right thing. No trade, missing out on a move like this is much better than a losing trade and getting stuck in something like that. Obviously, if you're playing it right, you only have a small loss, but you'd be surprised how many people start moving their stop, saying, yeah, it's going to go back, it's going to go back, it's going to go back. And then the next thing you know, they jump out down here where the pain, they can't stand it anymore. And then it corrects. And before the end of the day, it's gone right back where it started. And that's what usually happens. That's probably ringing a bell with some of you right now as I'm discussing it. That's just the way trading goes. So don't be that guy. That's all I can tell you. But it's Thursday, so this is going to wrap up our trading week. No chart lessons on Fridays. And with next week being holiday, I'm probably going to be, I'm not sure what days I'm going to take off. I know I'll take off Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I may even take off Tuesday. I'll probably come in Monday and maybe even Tuesday. We'll see how the week's going. But I'm going to take off the bigger part of next week and for the holidays, for the Thanksgiving holiday here in the U.S. So, and there won't be, the trading will probably slow down as we go into that week anyway. Most of your professional traders and Wall Street are all going to be taking off probably early. So anyway, let's talk about today. We started off with this really tight blue channel. We had a break and we're making a new low, and then all of a sudden the bottom falls out of this thing. Well, when that happens, draw your measured moves. You can see we went a perfect measured move and bounced. And your next target will probably be this next measured move on the other side. And that's what this blue line is. Basically, those are just equal distance moves. And it shows you how the market moves. Market geometry is real. It moves in equal moves. And you can see that right there. And but yeah, we get a break of that blue and a huge sell-off, and then suddenly it reverses and takes it all back. So and then some. But yeah, these measured moves and these equal distance, and the way our tool works is you can just right click on that and show your measured move and take it off right there. But once I saw us breaking outside here, all I did was show your measured moves, and that gives you an idea exactly where the target's going to, and that's exactly where it goes to before it bounces, and that gives you a target on this side to where you're probably going to correct. And so use that stuff. If you're one of our members, you can download that for free. If you're part of our membership on our website, you can get it for free, basically. So that's our Pat's toolbar. But anyway, let's zoom in here, talk about the trades, and go from there. We had this big move up. We actually had an overshoot here. We tried to go higher once, and then we tried a couple more times. And then finally you get a second entry short and a nice signal bar there. Notice the new low, first entry, second entry. And that does confirm that trend line. Just go short right there. You ought to be able to get a scalp out of that. That's a pretty nice signal bar. So on the second entry, you'll probably get a scalp out of that at a minimum. Unfortunately, you didn't get much more than that, and it comes back and gets it. But then notice what happens. You get another two-legged move up. If you had a good signal bar here, by all means go short on that second entry. It's first break. Technically, by the count, it's not a second entry because there's a first entry and then a second entry right there. You can't, that inside bar, that's congestion. Don't go short there. Even though it probably worked, it looks like there's probably enough room in there. Don't go short on that because this is what happens to you. And you can see there's 2 points in there, so there's more than enough to get your scalp, but it's just not worth risking that because a lot of times it won't, and then it runs up and stops you out, and then it goes right where you thought it would. But that's just a two-legged move in your first break. So technically on a bigger picture, that is a second entry, but there's no setup there on that one. And then of course you try to go higher once, twice. That's a failure right at the key entry point, the EMA there. If prices turn down right there, it's probably going to trap people. And of course, that's exactly what happened. I really hoped we'd get more out of that trade, but we didn't. But if you're just patient, just a few minutes later, you get a first entry and a second entry, and look how bearish that bar is. Normally, I'd say, hey, you probably don't want to go short here, but with that bearish bar on a second entry short in a big downtrend like this, take that trade. You'll get a scalp. You should get a scalp out of that at least. And the bottom just falls out of that thing. It is a little congested there, but notice you try to go higher once, twice. There's a triple test there. Look how we're trying to go higher, and just eventually the sellers are going to give up, and they're all going to get run out. That's what happens here. You get a lower high here, but you've moved way too far. You don't want to be entering down here, but if you wait just a minute, you get a first entry and then another second entry and another nice signal bar. Plenty of room to get out. This one backs up again. If this was a little more bearish, I'd say, hey, go ahead and enter here because you could really look at that as a second entry too because of this double bottom. I didn't mark it on my chart. I liked going ahead and entering right here. So if you had entered here, you're already in the trade. But if you did miss that, then you got a decent, a little better signal bar than that, and you might even risk that one. Just go short right there. It's been a really strong down move. Then we make that equal distance move, and then you actually get another second entry right there, but the signal bar is not good enough. It's just an inside bar. It's a doji. This is congestion, so stay out of that one for sure. Just kind of work sideways. It would have worked in the end, but you don't know that, and it bounces real quickly. And we head up on this trend line right here. It's trend channel. Get a break, a new high, and it tries to go lower again. Problem is it's not a good enough signal bar. If you had a good signal bar there, you might try to ride that back to the EMA. I didn't mark it because really we were overdue for a reversal. And we just started working sideways here, but notice you made that high, then you tried to come back once, twice, and so this actually breaks higher and turns down. So you get a failure there. I kind of like that one, and you might have even entered here because you made this high, and then first test, second test. The only problem is that one's a little bit of an inside bar, and that looks a little congested. It's still congested here as well, but that's a third attempt, and this one breaks higher and closes. Pretty bearish bar. So you may, if we break lower there, we're probably going to drop on down and test these lows. As long as you got enough room, take that trade. Of course, it gets the scalp, it hits the bottom, bounces, and then next thing you know, we're working higher. And you don't enter in that. Don't even attempt to. There's no setup there. This is your signal bar, too bearish. And it doesn't give you a second chance, really. I mean, there is a failed second entry short right there, but we're way too far away from the EMA. This little short-term trend channel now has a close outside and a new high, and you see it doesn't go much further before it finally corrects. We do come back here and we really get like a little triple test right there, and that's a second entry long. It's not a great entry, but it is a second entry. This is a strong trend, and this thing is not selling off. So if it breaks higher, it may go higher. And the main reason I didn't like this one was because this was just an inside bar. If it would have broke higher there, I'd probably say go on and go long there. It's still a little aggressive because of all that sideways stuff there. And then we work up and we just get more sideways, and we're getting further and further away from the EMA, and you can see it's not long before price is correct. And unfortunately, you don't get a chance to go short here. Runs down, bounces it. It does give you a nice second entry here, but the signal bar is no good. So if you had a good signal bar there, go short. But you don't get it on my chart. And then we're just stuck in this stuff. Don't enter in that. Look how flat the EMA is. If you get a really bearish bar off the high or a really bullish bar off the low, this one was one that you might want to consider because it is a big bearish bar off the high. The problem is you got that bar there too, and we're just working sideways. You could look at that as a lower high, but I'd probably want a lower high off that, and you get one here, but by that time that's surely, I mean, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars in a row. I just don't think it's worth entering. Looks like we're going to get a setup here, but no, signal bar is not any good. We drop down, and of course it gives you an inside bar down here. You finally get a higher low right here, and I like this one just because it this thing really shot through the EMA, and you still got room back to the high. Look how bullish that is. Technically, this is your signal bar. So, but when this broke higher, right off that trend line, it's like it almost confirms that trend line. Normally, I would say I wouldn't mark one like that, but because this is a range, this is like a higher low, and this wasn't a good enough signal bar. And usually, you don't go to your next signal bar, but look how bullish that is, with still plenty of room left. And we just had the failed breakout, so it may break out on the other side. So I probably should at least mark that green. That's a little more advanced, but and you might have even thought about entering here, but when it left that stem right there, I wasn't crazy about it. But if it breaks above that little double bar matching high after the failed breakout, it's probably going higher. So there's a lot of reasons to like this trade. Your signal bar has to go below that bar right there, regardless of how you entered it. And then that took us into 2 o'clock or 2:30, and there's just nothing else going on there. I mean, this is a lot of movement not to get any. I mean, I've marked 2 possible greens, and I'm not crazy about either one of those. So, just not much happening. I mean, after 10 o'clock, all that movement, and most of this is just sideways stuff. And you got to be careful in this because you'll get chopped to pieces. So, yeah, it's kind of disappointing that we had this big move and didn't get a really good chance to enter on it. So So if you felt like you were struggling to find an entry, that's because there just weren't very many. So anyway, I'm not going to beat around the bush today. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm just going to wrap up our week. Again, probably taking off at least Wednesday, maybe on Tuesday of next week. I'm not sure yet. We'll just have to kind of see. I'll let you know what I'm going to be doing. But definitely no chart lessons on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So, but I'll probably do one Monday and maybe Tuesday. So, going to wrap it up. We'll be back again Monday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next.